Number 10. Deadpool. There have been a few amazing writers when it comes to those that really understand the crazier than a sack of ferrets merc with a mouth known as Deadpool. But one of the best writers we've had recently is Gary Dugan, and one of the best series we've gotten in terms of art has been his 2012 series. This is the series where we got the good, the bad, and the ugly story featuring Deadpool's team up with Wolverine and Captain America. The series does a good job of making you laugh and embodying that outlandish Deadpool humor, while also sometimes being grounded in reality to a point that you just want to cry for what poor Wade Wilson is going through. It has this really great and raw, dark humor that just creeps in every now and then to really remind you who Deadpool is, which is kind of a sad guy. Poor Deadpool. Number 9. Captain Marvel. This Captain Marvel is definitely a series I'd recommend more for fans of the character. If you want a series to get you a little bit more invested, then the 2012 is more accessible for those that are new, but still want something fresh. However, for die-hard Carol Danvers fans, this series was perfect. It really puts Carol in her element usually being outer space. Carol Danvers currently seems to have a pretty good life going following the events of her last series at the beginning of this one, fighting crime alongside the Avengers and her partner War Machine aka Rhodey, and surrounded by those she loves. However, she realizes that she needs more. She needs to be out among the stars. And so this series is mostly about fun space adventures, but she also gets a few really awesome letters from home that allows us to visit her Earthling friends that we've come to love. Also, can we just talk about how much Kelly Sue DeConnick just completely hits the mark when it comes to writing Captain Marvel, because that is very much a thing. Ugh, I just love DeConnick's writing, she's awesome. Number 8. Thanos. Jeff Lemire and Donny Cates both brought their own stories to this series surrounding Marvel's big bad himself, Thanos. Both stories are excellent and unique and are just fairly neatly knit together. Lemire's Thanos starts off with a tale where we learn that Thanos is dying. With death finally on his doorstep, will Thanos surrender to his love or fight to live another day? The next arc follows a resilient Thanos, spoiler alert, he survives, conquering planets throughout the galaxy, but being called to face one of the greatest threats that the multiverse has ever faced. Himself. Taken to the future by the hilarious and oddly charming new character of Cosmic Ghost Rider, Thanos then meets his future self, who has successfully obliterated almost all of life in the galaxy. Almost. In the story titled Thanos Wins by Donny Cates. Have I also mentioned just how gorgeous and vibrant the art and the colors are in this series? Because, yeah, they are. You should just read it for the colors. Just look at the colors are so good. Number 7. Sue and Reed splits. Finally, this reality is one where Sue seems to be more aware that Reed can never really fully commit to her. He proposes right before Ultimatum goes down, and they are faced with a giant wave as a result. Sue manages to push the wave back, but slips into a comatose state as a result, prompting Reed to go out looking to punish the villains and abandoning Sue, leaving her with the Thing, aka Ben Grimm. In the Ultimate Universe, Reed and Sue actually don't end up together in the end. In fact, Sue, after she's revived, finds out about a sinister plot of Reed's, realizing that he has become a villain. Ben attempts to try and explain how Reed could just be up to something that they both don't fully understand, but Sue is over making any more excuses for him, implying that she never wanted to marry him to begin with. In fact, Sue and Ben actually end up together, with Reed becoming a villain. For some reason, I actually find this to be just a better fit for these two characters, just in terms of their overall paths. As much as they've had some pretty sweet moments together on Earth 616, the couple has also had major problems over the years that sometimes seem just to get swept under the rug so that we can try to keep them together without any resolution of those problems. This, however, provides us with some resolution and consequence for those moments, and it kind of addresses some of them, which I like. Just feels a little more realistic. Number 6. Venom. Donny Cates' work on the latest Venom series takes Eddie Brock's character to new heights. Cates' work on Venom has in fact been so good, many fans simply don't want it to end. We're just not ready. We're like, please, don't let this story ever end. It's so good. Of course, we know everything does have to come to an end eventually, but this has just really been some standout work when it comes to continuing to develop and evolve the character of Eddie Brock, while also staying true to his history. Of course, this book has also carried us through and to last summer's exciting, nail-biting, and horrific event that was
Number 5. Gotham High. Written by Melissa Dela Cruz and complemented by the dazzling artwork of Thomas Patelli, this graphic novel, you can just slam through it in a day easily. So we have your usual team players. We got Bruce Wayne, Selina Kyle, Jack Napier, except it's a new take on Gotham's go-getters. An entirely new take, rather. It takes place at Arkham Prep, so there's a lot of hip standing with hands on the hips, some locker gossip, and of course we have the high school students who think they're the coolest people ever. It's high school. And then we see these amazing new takes on these characters. Bruce Wayne is from Hong Kong and came to Gotham to go to school. He hasn't been home in years since his parents' death. And Bruce's neighbor, Selina Kyle, is in a love triangle with the two boys and kind of puts them against each other. You know, she's the girl who's rich and now she's dealing with some personal family issues. And Jack Napier, he wears plaid. The dude skateboards. He's the class clown who's poor but brilliant. These character paths are of course parallel to the story we know now, but to see it in an all new light, focusing on the mental young minds of these young students that are dealing with these paths, it's kind of a breath of fresh air in a way. And I'm sure readers will find ways to relate to these characters in a way they never have before. A good amount of readers weren't a fan, but you know what? Change isn't for everybody, and that's fine. That's also good.
Number 4. Black Panther and the Crew. Black Panther and the Crew is a limited series written by Ta-Nehisi Coates and Yona Harvey, featuring art by Butch Gucci. Or Gooch. I don't know how to say that. Featuring art by Butch Gooch. Guice? How would you say that? Guice? Or Gucci? I want to say Gucci just because it sounds fun. I just like the way Butch Gucci sounds. I'm sorry if that's not right, Butch. Please, don't come at me. I'm sorry. This series follows Black Panther and other superhero colleagues who come together to solve a mystery in Harlem that seems to involve police brutality, which could echo outward into something bigger. The team of supers form a group known as the Crew in order to solve the mystery and to stop the villains behind it. The result is that you get an empowering, thrilling, and stunning story both to read and to look at. Ta-Nehisi Coates is also known for his amazing Black Panther series that we talked about earlier from 2016. If you just want something to wet your whistle when it comes to his work on Black Panther, then this is something I would recommend. It's only 6 issues and it's all really good. All the characters, including T'Challa, are also well and accurately written, which is not an easy feat to accomplish in a team book, especially Misty Knight. Goodness, Misty Knight is so well written in that book. I love it. Number 3. Ultimate Spider-Man. Although there were many problems when it came to the continuity of the Ultimate Universe, the Spider-Man series was not one of them. In fact, Ultimate Spider-Man was more celebrated for being a breath of fresh air that remained consistently coherent throughout. To this day, it remains some fans' favorite Spider-Man comic series, period, and not just one of their favorite series within the Ultimate Universe. Some even hold this series above any of the Spider-Man main continuity stuff. Why was the Spider-Man series so good from Ultimates? It had a sense of finality and it wasn't wishy-washy. It committed, it followed through, it offered fresh new takes on characters, and whether or not you loved all of those new takes, you had to respect them. Most of those changes were made to make Spider-Man's stories and characters feel more grounded, more realistic. Peter also returned to high school, which a lot of fans enjoyed because they felt it was younger Peter, Spider-Man in high school, that was kind of his most relatable version. So taking him back there felt really good. Number 2. Moon Knight. With talk of us getting Moon Knight in the MCU, you might be wondering just who is this mysterious character who looks like a less sensibly dressed Batman. If you are thinking that, then I'm assuming you have yet to read this amazing series, which had more than one talented writer tell Moon Knight's story throughout, including writing from Cullen Bunn, Brian Wood, and Warren Ellis. It also features artwork from the talented Declan Shalvey and Greg Smallwood, with bold colors from one of my favorites, Jordi Belair, and striking letters by Travis Lanham, to name a few, because there's more talented people that worked on it. Just all in all, it's a great creative team that even while rotating out still manages to keep a consistent feel throughout the book. Moon Knight is Mark Spector, a former mercenary with a split personality disorder who is given powers by Khonshu, the Egyptian moon god. Moon Knight as such serves Khonshu, at least we think he does, and he thinks he does. This series is critically acclaimed due to how well it deals with the question of Spector's mental state, and paces out the storytelling in a way to also kind of make you as the reader question reality yourself. Who doesn't want to question reality, am I right? Number 1. House of X / Powers of X. Here we are again, almost in present day. 2019. House of X and Powers of X were technically two separate series that came out last year, both limited, running 6 issues each. However, the series was married together for the purposes of trades, so if you were looking at getting a paperback or perhaps even a hardcover version of one of these series, which I do recommend getting the hardcover, you'll notice they only come together. But trust me when I say you'll likely want both of them, especially if you're diving into any of the other series that are part of the Dawn of X line. Jonathan Hickman is currently the main mastermind behind Dawn of X, and House and Powers of X serve to introduce readers to this new mutant world that Hickman is building, with the triumvirate powers of Moira McTaggart, Professor X, and Magneto founding it. If you haven't read it, you need to. It's not only pretty, but powerful, and it will get you excited about this new line by breathing much needed life into the X-Men and mutant world. Number 10. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Willow. I just really need to shout out Boom Studios this year, especially some of the stuff they're doing with the Buffy properties, and so I've chosen to do that through highlighting their new series for Willow. This story is whimsical and boasts of some beautiful artwork and colors from Natasha Bustos and Eleonora Bruni, respectively. Mariko Tamaki introduces us to the magical and mysterious little community of witches known as Abane, which welcomes Willow in when she feels like she needs to spend a little time apart from her friends, not ready to return home to Sunnydale after studying abroad in London. The series takes you on a beautiful journey of Willow's self-discovery, and the series does a great job of nailing Willow's awkward yet assertive voice.
Number 9. Wonder Woman Tempest Tossed. Written by Laurie Halse Anderson and artwork done by Leila Del Duca, we have a wonderful story that picks up with Diana's 16th birthday. So right off the bat, she explains the physical and emotional challenges of growing up. Promised that this awful phase would of course end on her birthday. So she trains, she fails, and she reflects. It's a hard time. She truly believes she'll never be a warrior. And then a ship of refugees washes up on shore, children included, and while the others are handling it in a way most warriors would, she's not really a warrior, at least not yet. So this outcast side of her that she's resented ends up being the driving, changing force that turns the tides, literally. And she helps these refugees and their children out. But in doing so, like I said, not a warrior quite yet, she gets herself in a bit of a pickle, saving more than she can pull to shore, ultimately being swept out with the refugees to the Mediterranean Sea. And then that's the Diana we get for this beautiful story about her trying to find her way among these refugees who are being split up from their families. It's an important comic, and the pacing keeps you hooked. You're just begging for her to get back home, but you also love seeing her help other people out as this lost teen version. It's one of those comics where after you're done reading the page, you kind of just give it the up and down, just admiring the way the story is presented by Leila Del Duca. If you read Sleepless or Shudder, it's the same kind of style. Simple yet enchanting.
And before we move on to number 9, guys, if you could please Hulk smash that like button, because it really helps us all out here a bunch. You guys are the best, thank you so much. Now, let's get back to the list. Number 8, X Factor. X Factor is just such a marvelous team of weirdos, different from Hellions, though that admittedly came close to getting picked from me as one of the best series, as I am also thoroughly enjoying the story of those extremely dangerous weirdos. This new chapter of X Factor brings back some familiar faces from the team, while also adding some new ones. X Factor in Dawn of X is working alongside the Five, the mutant group who handle resurrections. It's up to X Factor to investigate mysteries involving missing persons and more, as reported by mutants on the island using Forge's new tech, Fleet Seeds. Also, I just want to say, Twitter, you can claim that you came up with the term fleet, but it was actually X Factor writer Leah Williams. When it comes to art, we have David Baldion on pencils and inks, and Israel Silva on colors, and of course we have Joe Caramagna on letters. And can I just say how much I love so many of the outfits in X Factor as well. I love these designs. Everyone looking so stylish. Number 7, Black Panther. Ta-Nehisi Coates is a writer who has a background in hard-hitting journalism as well as being known as an accomplished author. And that was before he even made his way over to Marvel Comics. Needless to say, there was a lot of hype when it was announced that he would be taking over the Black Panther title. Fortunately, he did not disappoint. 2016's Black Panther series helped to completely revitalize this character. Coates' take was refreshing and relevant. He not only helped to create new, powerful, and interesting supporting characters, but also did an amazing job highlighting some of the conflicts that weren't always as often touched on, like that of politics and how how the people of Wakanda feel about having a government that is a monarchy. If you love Black Panther, the 2016 run is a must read, and if you've never read any Black Panther, then this run is likely one that will pull you in and just make you want to know and read more. Number 6. Three Jokers. Three Jokers has to be the most anticipated comic of the year. This was a comic that we have been waiting for ever since we heard the revelation that there were 3 Jokers during the Darkseid War arc back in 2015. That's right, we waited 5 years for this comic to show up. And while some may think it didn't live up to the long 5-year hype, I personally do believe that it delivered. The art by Jason Fabok was impeccably detailed and engaging, with stunning and dimensional color from Brad Anderson and letters from Rob Lee providing connecting artistic tissue to the look of the issues. All this gorgeous art also helped to bring Jeff Johns' both very violent and very subtle storytelling moments to life. The thing that I loved most here too is the way the violence is used in the story. It isn't overdone, it isn't necessarily in your face, it serves to advance the plot, to remind us of these characters' pasts, their traumas, and to advance the Joker's relationships with these characters and, in a way, one another. The story left us with some compelling revelations that, if canon, could change many things for Batman, Joker, and the Bat family going forward. Time will only tell if that is what happens, of course, but I'm kinda hoping we at least get to keep some of this story. Number 5. Death. Wait a minute, Amanda, didn't you just cite death as being a bad thing on your worst list? Yes, I did. We were talking about Ultimatum. But that was more death for the sake of death, not death in general. I actually enjoy when characters die. Well, I don't enjoy when they die, but more that I enjoy the finality that death invites. I like death as consequences, but more than that, I like the higher stakes that it gives us. If anyone at any point can die, it means that everything is more exciting because, you know, they might not make it back from that mission. Their actions carry more weight because there's a real risk that they face. When characters can die, it also means stories get to end, and with endings come new and exciting beginnings. Number 4. Giant-Size X-Men, Jean Grey and Emma Frost. This script from Jonathan Hickman might be light on dialogue, but there is still a ton of story packed into this sleek, elegant, and electric book. Giant-Size X-Men, Jean Grey and Emma Frost is a single-issue story about Jean and Emma teaming up in order to help their friend, Storm. In Emma's case, Storm is less than a friend, and something more complex, more like a frenemy at this point. But in Jean's case, her fellow X-Men Aurora is like a sister. We also get the sweetest cameo appearance from Wolverine and Cyclops in this issue, all drawn by Russell Dodderman with vibrant colors by Matthew Wilson and letters by Clayton Cowles. Never mind a must read, this one is a must own as well. Number 3. Hawkeye. Matt Fraction's Hawkeye is one of the most highly praised Hawkeye series around, and just series in general. If you've ever heard another comic nerd going on and on about Pizza Dog, this was also where that adorable doggo character originated, later named Lucky. Pizza Dog would later become Hawkeye's beloved animal companion for both Hawkeyes actually, both Clint Barton and the younger Kate Bishop. The story follows Hawkeye's adventures when he's not working alongside the Avengers team, and where his hero stories feel more grounded in reality, because at the end of the day, Clint's kinda just a dude. A super skilled dude when it comes to his accuracy with a bow and arrow, but still, just a dude. And honestly, it's that revelation which Fraction so beautifully explores, as well as David Aja's stunning artwork throughout most of the issues, that really makes the series so enjoyable. Number 2. Far Sector. The last standing Young Animal series, Far Sector is an inviting and enigmatic series that really draws you in. Whether you have read Green Lantern or never read Green Lantern, this is a must-read series. The series comes to us from the beautiful mind of N.K. Jemisin and the pencils, inks, and colors of Jamal Campbell, with letters by Darren Bennett. And if you enjoyed this series, I also recommend checking out Jemisin's other works. She's actually an accomplished and compelling science fiction writer with many books out there waiting for you to discover, if you somehow haven't already. Far Sector introduces us to Green Lantern Sojourner Moline, who possesses a unique lantern ring, which is initially weaker, but when its true potential is tapped into, could actually have the potential to be one of the strongest rings around. Joe's ring basically does not need a power battery to charge, it actually self-recharges, but it takes time for it to do so, meaning that Joe can exhaust her ring's power and then it can need days to fully recharge, but she he also doesn't need a power battery, so there's that. Seriously, I never found myself enamored with the world of Green Lanterns until I read this series. It's not finished just yet, but I cannot wait to also add the trades to my collection as well as the issues. And hopefully the end of the series won't also be the end of Lantern Maline's story, because I just love her so much. Please keep her alive, DC, please.
And number 1, Miles Morales' Spider-Man. This has been a huge year for our boy Miles Morales. I mean, his game was the best-selling physical game with the launch of the PS5. Marvel is finally showing us this multiversal Spider-Man movie, which Miles will for sure steal the show. And then of course, the comic. So this new run starts off with these big letters on the front page. New creative team, new direction, your favorite new book. You can't really argue. Saladin Ahmed's writing is so fun, honest, unexpected, and wholesome with every turn of the page. Right off the bat with the first issue, it feels like the Spider-Verse movie almost. It's a fast-paced game of catch-up. He gives the rundown in maybe 4 pages, and then bam, it's go time. It really touches base with the struggles of being a kid who happens to have powers. So this Miles is confused about his role in all of this. He's confused about his role in life, confused about school and how to balance everything properly. It's relatable, and every time he gets his hopes up for something, this responsibility falls into his sticky hands, and he's forced to add to this already full plate. But once he springs into action, he is a hell of a lot of fun to watch.
And speaking of knowledge, let's get counting. Number 10, Marvel's Lifeline. One of the best things about the Ultimate line was what it did for Marvel as a company and a publisher. It provided a lifeline to Marvel at a time when it needed it the most. The comics industry bubble that once had made collectibles so valuable had burst. The hype and demand of the early 90s had vanished completely, leaving Marvel with tons of comics printed that would simply not sell. With the demand gone and production costs putting them into the red, Marvel was forced to sell off licenses to some of their best characters. This is how Sony got the rights to Spider-Man and how Fox got the rights to X-Men. And it's what prompted Marvel to change things up and create the Ultimate Universe. The Ultimate Universe was meant to be something fresh and new, free of continuity and ultimately more gritty, realistic, and with an edge. Amazingly, the new line of Ultimate Comics did well. So well that it provided Marvel with the stability it needed to recover. Without the Ultimate line, it's possible that we might not have the Marvel stories, animated series, films, or comics of today. That's how successful and important Ultimates was. Number 9, the Inhumans. I've said it before and I will say it again, I think the design of the Inhumans is much better on Earth 1610. They look more compelling and intimidating. Nothing against the 616 Inhumans, who I also like just fine, but I actually want to get to know these Inhumans more. Overall, I think the Ultimate Inhumans are a little more interesting than their main continuity counterparts. Number 8, no previous continuity. One of the best things that the Ultimate Universe and line offered readers was a fresh start, meaning that years and years of comic book history didn't really apply here. The idea was you didn't have to know what had gone on in the past or what was going on currently in the comics to just jump into a book, with comic book continuity being a concept that many new readers still find daunting today. This was freeing for consumers because it meant you could buy in without having to worry about potentially being confused because something from 20 years prior came up that you needed to understand in order to know what was really going on in the story. This wasn't the case for Earth 1610. At least, it wasn't the case to begin with. Freedom from continuity meant more creative freedom for writers, but unfortunately, Ultimates really only started as new reader accessible, but quickly became bogged down with intricate storytelling and details. It even ended up having retcons as well, which might confuse readers jumping in later on, with the first Ultimate Iron Man series being so out there that Marvel decided to retcon it out of existence, instead turning it into a ridiculous anime show set in the same universe, but that wasn't actually considered to be the true story of Iron Man. So that comic basically became like non-canon.
Number 7, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. Written by the lovely Matt Fraction with the art of Steve Lieber comes a comic I could read forever. Fans have even gone so far to say as one of the best comic runs of the decade, and honestly I can see why. It feels like I'm reading Calvin and Hobbes in a way, because these stories are so short and so fun, often complemented by one single punchline. So these stories are wacky, they're fun, and it's the little off moments that you don't normally get to see with these big storylines. It's really funny too. I mean, the timing of these scenes cutting back and forth from chaos to casual conversation, the pace changes so quick, you don't really get a chance to be bored. Even some of the stories that I was bored by, I just read for like 35 more seconds and then bam, it was entirely new. I feel bad for Jimmy, but I also feel bad for Superman. I mean, the guy has to keep flying in to save his ass. But what makes it a buddy cop, adventurous, and lighthearted at its core is the dynamic with Jimmy and Superman, of course. They take these casual water cooler conversations of the superworld and just expand on them, hilariously. I can't touch on how great the timing is for these transitions. I mean, Matt Fraction is so good at raising the stakes and then just cutting to Jimmy like drinking beer, saying something that completely goes against the last page, and it's great.
Number 6. Nick Fury. Another great thing that the Ultimate Universe gave us was a new Nick Fury that was so successful he actually became the new version of Nick Fury in the main continuity, and inspired the MCU version of the character as well. Hilariously enough, Samuel L. Jackson's likeness inspired the redesign of the character. Fury would even acknowledge that Jackson would be his top pick to play him in a movie. The story goes that originally Samuel L. Jackson was actually not too happy about Marvel using his likeness without really asking him or without any compensation or conversation about it, but when he contacted them, they actually apologized and offered him the role of Nick Fury in any future films. Jackson supposedly was appeased and accepted the offer, and the rest, they say, is history. Today, I personally cannot imagine the MCU without him. Number 5. Absolute Carnage. I mean, come on, you didn't think I was gonna do this list and not talk about it, right? Absolute Carnage was such a great series because it did a great job of bringing everyone together from the Spideyverse and beyond in a way that felt both epic and meaningful. It allowed us to take a look at what I like to call symbiote fever, which is a phenomenon that has been growing ever stronger since symbiotes and Venom first hit the scene. In the series, Venom, Spider-Man, and a slew of other supers must come together to defeat Absolute Carnage, a leveled up version of Cletus Cassidy who now finds himself resurrected and bonded to the Grendel symbiote, which has taken on a Carnage-like form and personality. Carnage is aiming to collect all of the codexes from the spines of those alive or dead who once wore/bonded with a symbiote. If he succeeds, Null will awaken and return to basically devour Earth. Yikes. How is Venom going to get out of this one? Well, you gotta read to find out. It's not really so much of a get out of, but I don't want to spoil anything. Number 4. The Maker. Talk about unique spins on characters. The Maker definitely offered us a completely different take on Reed Richards, one that was more modern and actually felt like it kind of fit better, not just within the world, but within a more current day and age. I think a huge issue with the Fantastic Four that we see when it comes to adapting that team to sort of a film setting in the modern day is that the heroes are kind of stiff. They're definitely a product of the time period in which they were created, a perfect and kind of wholesome family unit. The Ultimate Universe shattered that expectation, broke up the Fantastic Four team, and gave us the amazing villain that is the Maker, a version of Reed Richards whose love and dedication to science actually makes him a horrifying, immoral, pretty much mad scientist type, if a mad scientist could somehow also be like disturbingly sane and logical. The Maker is one of the best villains to have ever existed in comics in general, not even just within the confines of the Ultimate Universe, which of course the Maker would also literally break free from in the comics.
Number 3. Immortal Hulk. Written by Al Ewing and art drawn by Jill Bennett comes a horrific take on the big green guy's life. It opens with a gas station robbery, and then Bruce Banner is inside, so naturally he gets angry, and then shot and killed? Wait, he got shot in the first 4 pages? Okay, so it's dark, right off the bat. Gotcha. Cut to a morgue. Banner's lifeless body begins to transform. Here we go. Hulk is coming back for blood. This series touches on the good side of Bruce Banner being haunted by this relentless Hulk. This comic really hits themes of abuse and obviously death as well. Since its launch in 2018, fans have loved how it starts with evil from humans. There's no smashing and bashing supervillains while they monologue and gloat. It's just dark and depressing. It's a great new take on the character, and it's no surprise that in some comic book stores, it's currently outselling the other big ones.
Number 2. Miles Morales. One of the greatest things to come out of Ultimate Spider-Man as well, the story and character of Miles Morales, whom we've all come to love very dearly. What's more, Peter's apparent death also paved the way for Miles, allowing him to step into the spotlight as Spider-Man, and even take over. Even after we learned that Peter Parker had actually survived as well and wasn't actually dead due to the Oz formula making him virtually immortal, he still decided to pass the torch to Miles. He'd had his time as a hero, now it was Miles' turn. I just love how the story goes. I love that Miles truly got to be the one and only Spider-Man on Earth 1610. And while I love Peter, I kind of hope we get to see Miles step into the spotlight as the one and only Spider-Man at some point on Earth 616 too. Or bring back a world where he is the one and only Spider-Man. Number 1, the MCU. The Ultimate line is what helped to pave the way for the MCU, and in fact provided much needed inspiration for the cinematic universe. There are many characters from Earth 1610 who have influenced their Earth 199999 counterparts. That is, their Marvel Cinematic Universe counterparts. Not only have characters from the Ultimate Universe found their way to the big screen through the MCU, but stories from the Ultimate line have also served to inspire some of those told to us in the films.